All right, we're there.
Great. It is now 5:32 on the 9th of February, 2022. This is David Goldberg, Chair of the Oregon City Library Board, calling the Library Board meeting for, what's that? Denise, is there a problem? Chair of the Oregon City Library Board, calling the, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Sorry.
I just temporarily muted you.
Meeting to order. And the first order of business is the roll. And let me tell you, Cynthia Andrews is here, Heidi Blackwell, Carrie Linder, Elizabeth Zinter, Nick Dierkman, Greg Williams, the director, and Denise Butcher, the operations manager. Larry Osborne has an excused absence. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from 3 meetings. Because since we skipped December, we have the November meeting. Let's do that first. If anybody has any suggestions of corrections or additions, could you please raise them now? Hearing none, could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes from all 3 prior meetings as presented.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Any second?
I'll second that.
Second, Nick, any comments on the other 2 meetings, the regular meeting or the work session that we did on the strategic plan? Everything looked good to everybody? Great, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting those 3 minutes, please so indicate. Aye?
Aye.
Okay, so
Aye.
moved. I'd like to change, since we have somebody who wants to make a public comment, I'd like to move that up so that she doesn't have to wait for the library director's report. And so with that, would you invite Penny Simpson in, please, for public comment?
Are you there, Penny?
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
Can you introduce yourself and give us your city of residency, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Penny Simpson, Oregon City, Oregon. And I wasn't really prepared to speak.
Or you just want to watch?
I just wanted to watch this time. Can I maybe make a presentation later?
A presentation about what and later when? I mean,
Oh, well, you know, in a few minutes after other people have finished speaking.
Sure, if you'd like, we could certainly do the director's report first and then
Okay.
invite you back if you're happy to wait.
Fine.
Okay, good. Well, why don't we do that and accommodate Ms. Simpson?
Can you see me?
I can't see you. I see your name, Carlene
Okay.
Simpson, but I don't see you.
I don't know how to get it to work. I don't know. Oh, okay. I think start video. That's probably what I have to press. Okay. There we go.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so we're gonna table this part of the meeting for a bit at the request of Ms. Simpson and continue with the library director's report. So Greg, please take it.
Okay. Thank you, David. Happy February, everyone. Good to see everyone. I have my report to share with you. As usual, I will kind of hit a couple of highlights of just things I want to particularly mention. If there's anything in the report you have questions about or anything else you'd like to know about when I'm done, feel free to ask, and we will try to get through this, as quickly as possible. So on the statistics notes, the 2 things I wanted to point out is we've added a new statistic on the information that you get. It's our reference inquiry statistic. We have a tool that we've been using for a while, but we deployed it to even more desks, service desks, that helps us count the number of inquiries we get. This is something that we report to the state every year, and it's good data. It shows the number of questions that we're getting from our community. There are three ways we categorize those, and I put the kind of the definitions in there. So I'll continue to report that on a monthly basis, and if there's ever any questions, I'm happy to answer. January, on the January 2022 statistics, hopefully you saw it was one of our, probably our busiest month since we reopened in July. Which was, we felt it here at the library, and it was, nice to see that reflected in the statistics. Our foot traffic was the highest it's been since July. Our circulation by several circulation statistics were as high as they've been since July, and our Wi-Fi and internet session usage was very high as well. So it's good to see our usage continuing to climb as we hopefully climb out of the pandemic. Speaking of the pandemic, operations-wise, January was, as with many city departments and many people, many businesses throughout the world, January was kind of a challenging month COVID-wise. We had a couple of staff members test positive for COVID. Thankfully, the most important thing is they are all healthy and recovered. So very glad about that. We also had a couple of staff.
Great. Could I ask a question about the statistics?
Sure.
When I was reviewing them, I know we're comparing to last year, and last year's obviously we were in the throes of really getting into COVID and all that, or actually beyond that. But I wondered if there was a way that we could do a 1 month comparison with the 2019 data, just to get a better feel for where we are compared to where we were in 2019, which would have sort of, I think that's kind of a measure of where, if we got back to that kind of level, it would be pretty telling.
Okay, I will prepare that for next, I'll prepare that for our next meeting for next month. That's easily doable. I'll put it out there as a reminder, probably the foot traffic statistics, we had a different system, and there was kind of an issue with counting the statistics, but we'll do the best apples to apples we can.
Right. Okay. I think that's a great idea, because it would get some notion as to how close to normal we are.
Yeah.
We don't have that sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Thank you, Nick. Let's see. Okay, so staffing wise, staffing wise, yeah, so we had a couple of closures. Thankfully, everybody was healthy. We did have a couple of other people that were quarantined, so staffing on a day-to-day basis was a little tight in January, but we made it through, and hopefully, knock on wood, we're kind of climbing out of that. I'm pleased to report that we were awarded a $4,800 workforce development grant from the state library. Thanks to Larry in absentia for his help preparing that grant request. That money is going to go for equipment that we can put into our meeting rooms to help facilitate remote meetings. We've noticed that, the world, our post-COVID world, lots of job interviews and even some onboarding is being done remotely via Zoom. And so we want to be able to provide patrons with access to those types of facilities in something a little more private and a little more well-suited to that kind of interaction than our computer lab. So we're going to use that money to get some camera systems that will help facilitate remote meetings with individuals or small groups. So we're excited about that. Our youth services librarian, Barrett Miller, who is with us tonight, she recently enrolled in an 8-class training series called Touch Points in Libraries. And thank you to Elizabeth for forwarding on information about that training opportunity. It's designed to, it's geared towards folks who work in libraries. So this is a framework that is used. I'm not an expert in this, so Elizabeth or even Heidi, you probably know more about this than I do. But the Brazelton Touch Points approach to building family-child relationships is evidence-based. It's used significantly in the education world. And so this training course is geared towards library professionals. And we felt that this would be a really good skill set to develop for our youth services staff, especially Barrett. I don't know, Barrett, if you want to say anything about it or.
Sure, I can say a couple things quickly. So essentially, it's a framework of working with parents of young children, age birth to age 5, that really focuses on strategies that you can use to really build good relationships with parents and use those relationship skills to help them help their children. Whether it can be used in library settings, education settings, healthcare settings, social services settings, pretty much anywhere professionals are interacting with parents and children, developing a set of tools for building relationships with parents as like a primary means of instead of judging or jumping right to education or making assumptions, just a different toolkit of ways to interact that will benefit the children the most.
Barrett, it sounds like it dovetails pretty nicely with the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten project.
Yes, I think it will be a really useful set of tools, for the conversations we're going to be having with parents around 1,000 Books, especially parents who are maybe, a little bit, intimidated by the program or who need some additional, they want their kids to be excited about reading, but maybe they aren't that excited about reading themselves. I think it's a really good, there'll be some really good tools there that can help us have those conversations in a really positive, supportive way.
Liz or Barrett, is this the Dr. Brazelton, the pediatrician?
Yes.
I have a wonderful story. This is an amazing man. And this is a pediatrician of great renown nationally. And about 20 years ago, I was giving a talk to a large group of doctors, and there was a baby in the audience that just lost it. I mean, was just screaming. And up stood this gentleman and walked across in the audience. He was in the audience and picked up this child who was instantly silenced. I mean, just cooing from that moment on. And it turned out it was Brazelton. And people cheered him. I mean, they knew exactly who he was. He's this amazing character. Yeah.
He's a hero in our early childhood birth to 5 world. He's like, yeah, I'm so excited that Barrett's going that training. I'm a little jealous, but I'm very excited for you.
Barrett, are we going to be able to do training as part of a library program that may be for hands-on with parents as a result of any of this?
Right now, it's more a set of tools that I'm developing, tools and strategies that I can use. I think there's certainly, I think mainly the way that it will kind of get passed on is that the training that I'm doing for staff in the library will be informed by some of these principles, and I'll be able to sort of, I'm not a trained facilitator of this program, so I can't formally train all of our staff, but I'll be able to teach them the basics and have all of our staff who interact with parents develop this framework of skills and strategies that they can use to build really strong relationships with parents.
Right.
Could you repeat the name of the program, please, Barrett?
It's the Brazelton Touch Points.
And if you look on,
I put a link in the chat.
Yeah, look on your chat, there's a link that Liz put up.
And for anybody who is extremely curious and wants to go down the rabbit hole, Dr. Brazelton did write a book on the touch points method and his whole philosophy. So if you're curious, we don't have that book in the library collection. We should fix that immediately.
So be it.
Thank you, Barrett. And I want to recognize Barrett. I put Barrett on the spot a little bit. Thank you, Barrett. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Barrett.
The other things I wanted to just quickly highlight. We, in the Carnegie section of the library now, we are really pleased. We partnered with the Mclaughlin Memorial Association, and we have their model of the Mclaughlin House is on display in the Carnegie. We've decided that history truly is cyclical because 113 years ago, the original house moved down from the shores of the river up the hill to where we are. And 113 years later, the model house took the same journey to go down from the Museum of the Oregon Territory up here. So we've gotten lots of really great comments on it. We're going to get some information from the Mclaughlin Memorial Association to provide some interpretive assistance with it. We're just pleased to have it. In January, as we touched on a little bit, we formally launched our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. So we were really excited. I had a great opportunity. I want to say it was Monday or Tuesday. I saw my first parent come back with their 1,000 Books tote bag with them. So it was great seeing somebody walking into the library with their tote bag. We've had good interest in it, I could certainly put Barrett on the spot. If there's any questions, since Barrett's here, if you have any questions about kind of the first week of 1,000 Books feel free to ask Barrett, and I know she'll give a much better answer than I'm able to. Let's see. The other things I wanted to highlight from the director's report. Two of our library staff participated in the Tumwater Middle School's 8th grade vacant lot event. That was an event where a teacher got his 8th grade students together. They formed small teams and they were providing pitches to the city for what to do with that vacant lot down near the bus stop and where KFC is. There's a vacant lot that the city owns. And so the 8th graders came up with some great ideas. Denise attended that along with Sabrina, our teen specialist, and it was a very fun, successful event from everything I hear. The teens had some really good ideas for using that space. Do you want to share one real quickly, Denise? You want to share your favorite?
Sure. I think my favorite one was a putt-putt golf course, and all of the holes were going to be based on an Oregon City historical site, such as the elevator and end of the trail and so forth. And so they had really thought out about the elevator. You would putt into the elevator, it would go up, come out, and go down somewhere else. So yeah, there was some very good, a lot of food carts, a lot of outdoor music spaces. So yeah, it was a very nice program. So.
Great ideas from our teens. The other two things I wanted to highlight. Barrett keeps getting put on the spot, so it's because Barrett's awesome. So on a periodic basis, the school district reviews their curriculum, and this year it was their time to review the English language arts curriculum for K-5. Barrett, am I correct with that?
They're doing K-12, but I'm on the elementary committee.
On the elementary committee. So Barrett was invited to participate in that process with the school district, which we were really excited about. First, that we've developed a good relationship with the school district, that they thought to reach out to us and include us in that. And from a purely selfish point of view, it really helps us better understand what teachers are trying to accomplish with the curriculum, what's important to them, and how we can develop services and materials to supplement and support their efforts. So I think it's been a really positive process. I think it was great to be involved, and I'm really glad we were able to pitch in and provide some library perspective and support to that process.
And this is a critical time right now. As when we started the year, as you know, I do some volunteer work at an elementary school in Northeast Portland, and in terms of literacy. And when we started the year, the kids were so far behind. I mean, they were really dragging. And we just got the first quarter's progress report on reading, and they have taken off. I mean, it was so optimistic. I just can't say enough about this being an important time to partner and invest in the schools, particularly at the elementary level, because these kids are catching up, and I've been pleased with what I've seen, at least in the school I'm working with. Yeah.
Great. In January, we started a new outreach program with our adult services department. So Jen, who coordinates our Because Accessibility Matters program, she's reached out to River Terrace Memory Care, which is a memory care facility, and put together a box of materials that would be appropriate and more easily used by people who are experiencing memory care issues or cognitive decline. So she had some large print books, some books with visual, a strong amount of visual content in there, some audio books, some graphic novels. So we're excited to do this. We're hoping that we're going to be able to do this with other memory care facilities in the area. And it's just another way of trying to bring library services out to the community, especially to those who have significant barriers accessing those services in the building. Link updates. I just wanted to let everybody know we got our first library district distribution of the year. We typically get 2 distributions, one at the end of January, which is about 93% of what we receive, and then one at the end will come at the end of June, which will be about 7%. the good news is it was right on track with our budget. So we budgeted very, very well. I didn't put this in the report. We also got our estimate for next year from the county, and that tracked extraordinarily well with our budgeted amount as well. So we're feeling pretty good that our budgeted revenue amounts are, going this year and next year are going to be very, very close to the distribution that we receive. And then finally, I presented just some comments we've gotten over the past couple of months. There was one that I just wanted to share because when I read it, it just made my heart sing, and I just want to memorialize it on video forever. So we got a great online comment, an amazing staff who will go way above and beyond to help you out and take time to listen, identify what you're talking about, help you research resources, whether they are library or outside resources, help you find solutions to your problem, and implement the proper course of action. I could not be more amazed nor shocked at any library staff. They truly care about the people who walk through their door.
How nice.
I feel strongly that that describes every single person who works at the library, and that care and that support they want to give to the community. So it was.
I just want to make a comment, Greg. I just, I go into and out of the library fairly regularly. And what is really nice in this age of anonymity and, phone-based customer services, to have the people at the various desks or working around the staff, that is, just look up when you come in or pass by and say hello or nod their head or something that recognizes that you're a person in the library. And I really, really appreciate that. So I was in there not too long ago and I thought, this is really nice just to be greeted by a nod and a hello or whatever it is. It's really important in this day and age.
I can only second that. I was in the library today and 3 staff members, one, I walked in and one just nodded and greeted me and said hello. And then another, the person at the kids' desk, we were there to see the new board, and she welcomed us. And then as we were leaving through the other side, through the Carnegie side, the librarian there, Aaron, was just effusive and very, very friendly. I mean, it really feels like a part of the community, that you're part of it. That's very exciting. Well done.
Well, good. Well, I will
third that from a parent perspective. The children's librarians, my son's really into scary books, which I don't want him to have scary books. He's 3. And he was in there one day and I think they heard me like trying to figure out how to get him a book that was appropriate for his age. And I don't know if it was Barrett or one of the other librarians came up with some scary books about a green bunny with underpants. And so he loved it. And so it's just, there've been, every time we go in, they engage with him and he loves the librarians.
Great. Okay, any questions for Greg?
I'll share the compliment as well. I had written it down since everybody, just that the presentation yesterday at the Oregon Black Pioneers, it's something very important to my family, and we really appreciated the library hosting that. It was a wonderful presentation, and if you're not familiar with that group, the Oregon Black Pioneers, they have amazing resources about the history of African Americans in Africa, in Oregon.
Fabulous.
I participated in that as well, or viewed it anyway, and that was really, really excellent. And the group I belong to, we had a discussion following on our own Zoom link, and I just want to commend the library for that presentation, and he's a very high quality presenter.
Great.
Well, thank you everybody for those wonderful comments. I will pass those on to our staff.
Please do.
I know they'll be appreciated. Thank you so
much. Any questions of Greg of his report or any of the statistics or the financials?
Just the one statistic that I continue to see is just the YA, or the young adult number of accessing the materials. There's just a huge drop off from the younger children to and then comparing it even to the adults. So just, I know that you have a program, and just when you're thinking about those connections, it kind of sparked my thought when Denise had said how impressed she was with some of the suggestions from the students about the land, any way to get their input seems like it would make a difference.
Great. Anything else? Okay, that said, Penny, are you ready for your 3 minutes of fame?
I just wanted to say that I've lived in and out of Oregon City most of my life. As a toddler, I swam in that pool that's now the water park.
Mm.
So I've been here a long time. I have relatives in the area. And I'm considering leaving a significant portion of my estate to the Library Foundation. And I wanted to kind of check in and see how things are being managed and whether or not the library is responsive to the community's values. And along that line, I have come across some children's things in the library that concerned me. So I did a little bit of a dive into the procedures that you are adhering to, American Library Association, regarding banning books and that kind of thing. But I wanted to know what is the procedure that a patron would follow to challenge a book, and what criteria do you apply when you consider? And I guess that's about it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Greg, can we address that? I mean, I don't want to get into a discussion of this now. That's not the purpose of the public comment, but there was a very specific question. So it'd be helpful to understand what that process is.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And I think that actually segues very nicely into our first scheduled discussion item, which is a review of our collection development policy and an overview of our challenge process. So I think we'll be able to answer those questions and have a good discussion about that. So with your permission, I'll go into our discussion item. All right.
Please do.
In your packet, I wanted to give some information to the library board. I included a couple of articles. There have been the various authors groups and library associations have experienced a higher number of challenges in recent months over some kinds of materials. I provided a couple of articles there that kind of give a couple different perspectives on those. One of those was from School Library Journal, which is a professional publication of school librarians. The other was from the New York Times. I'll put in a little plug. Remember, you can get access to New York Times for free with your library card. So everybody do that. And so knowing that this was kind of a topic that has gotten some coverage and has been discussed in the community, I wanted to make sure that the library board had a chance to go over our collection development policy, and I could answer any questions about how we do things, and I could review the challenge process just to make sure that everybody's on board and understands what that is. So I think the first thing I wanted to point out I gave our collection development policy. So the collection development policy was approved by the library board back in 2019. We review it, we standardly review it every 3 years. So I anticipate during the course of this year, we'll have a more formal review as a library board of the current collection development policy. I did want to point out that as part of that collection development policy, incorporated into that policy are the American Library Association Library Bill of Rights, the American Library Association Freedom to Read Statement, the American Library Association Freedom to View Statement, and the American Library Association Statement on Access to Library Materials by Minors. So all of those documents and the professional ethics and practices that they talk about have been incorporated into our library policy. I wanted to remind the board that part of the Oregon Library Association's Public Library Division standards for public libraries, one of the essential standards of libraries in Oregon is that the library board does adopt those documents, those American Library Association documents. So this board has done that. They did that separately from adopting the collection development policy. It was a unanimous adoption by the library board of all those documents, and helps us meet that important standard in the public library standards. So before I go on, were there any questions about kind of those ALA documents or how, the previous library board involvement with those documents. If there were, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll get into the meat of the collection development policy.
I didn't see the article, the ALA article about minors.
Okay, if you'd like, I can certainly forward that to you. I can forward you our collection development policy, and it should be included in there in an appendix.
Okay, good. Thanks.
In there. So maybe we'll have you, Denise, you have Ms. Simpson's email contact information, correct? Okay, we'll make sure you get a copy of that.
Great, thank you.
All right, so those are kind of the high level things. So our collection development policy talks, tries to present to the community, this is how we make the decisions that we make when we're evaluating what materials that we're going to purchase and make available to the community, how we're going to make determinations about where they are in the library, and we try to be as transparent about that as possible. So there's a lot in that collection development policy. It's 8 or 9 pages long. There's a couple of important things that I wanted to highlight, just to make sure everybody was consistent with, or was familiar with. But if there are other questions about it, we're certainly happy to answer them. And this is why I invited Barrett here to this meeting as the youth services librarian. She is the one who's primarily responsible for implementing our collection development policy, especially for our collections aimed towards kids and teens. And she's the right person to ask if there are any very specific questions. So the things that I wanted to touch on, a few elements of the policy, one of those, which I think is very important, is that each type of material is considered in terms of its overall merit, and not, it's evaluated as a whole, not by selected passages or portions. So one of the best practices of collection development, one of the things that librarians try to do is we try to look at the whole work and evaluate it on that basis. I would say that probably if you looked at, with the diversity of opinions out there, there's probably something in every book that we have in the library that somebody might not be their cup of tea, but when we're evaluating materials, we try to look at the work as a whole. In general, we are we take pains to make sure that we're not excluding any works based on the political beliefs of the creator, the social or religious views of the author or artist, or any other characteristics that might be that might make them a part of a protected class under Oregon law. So we try to be inclusive in the materials that we bring in. Our selectors use professionally recognized publications and reviews in those publications to help us make those decisions. So there are a lot of really great resources out there for librarians. Publishers Weekly, lots of American Library Association review sources. Barrett can, if there's interest, I'm sure Barrett can talk more intelligently about some of the ones geared towards literature for younger audiences. We look at awards lists. We look at what works are being recognized by the industry, what have won some major awards. We try to look at having a collection that reflects the diversity of the community we serve. When it comes to deciding where those materials are going to live in the library, in general, and I know Barrett can talk about this much more intelligently than I can. Age limits, every reader is different, right? There's no single age at which, oh, this person becomes ready for this material and is not ready for this material. So we do our best to try to kind of pick a good demarcation point. So in our policy, it basically says that books, materials that are basically geared for children, for the needs of children from birth through age 12, are downstairs in the kids area, and materials that are geared more towards older kids, 13 to 18, those are what get put in the teen area. Publishers don't put when a book comes out, there's no magic way of saying, this is appropriate for every single kid above the age of 13 or below the age of 12. So that's why we rely on our professional librarians, using those resources, using their understanding of the community needs to help make those decisions and make the best placement that they possibly can. And then, yeah, so those are kind of the main ones. And again, we also, one of our core values, our library and in the library profession as well, is that, we are not here to take the place of a parent. So we understand and we support that parents are the primary, they're the people who are working with their kids to make sure they can evaluate what's appropriate for their family and what's not. We are there as resources. Any parent or any family who has questions about what materials may or may not be appropriate for their kids, we are there to support them. But libraries in general, and our libraries definitely feels this way, it's not our role to be a parent, to make a parental decision on behalf of our community. So we try to make materials accessible and available to our community and provide as much resources and support as we can to parents to help them make the decisions that are right for their families. So that's kind of the high level things about our collection development policy that I wanted to point out. If there are questions.
One question that was raised that I'm curious about too, if somebody is having an issue with an item, what is a way to bring that issue forward in order to have it looked at by staff and ultimately by the board if need be?
Okay, so the challenge process is, so in our collection development policy, it's Appendix D. It's a request for reconsideration of library materials. So first of all, so any resident of our library service area may request to file a reconsideration of library materials. So on request, we would provide that form to the patron. The patron would fill that form out. We ask some information. We ask for their contact information. We ask them to identify what are the concerns they have about the material. Do kind of let us know what their feeling is about it. That would get turned back in to the library. As library director, I would consult with staff. We would evaluate that request and we would, see, okay, does this item that's being requested for us to reconsider, does it meet with our collection development policy? Is this something, after looking at the item, looking at our collection development policy, do we feel this is consistent with the policy that we have? And if the answer is yes, then I would report back to the person who made the request for reconsideration. I would either say that we are, what the decision is. Either we've taken the reconsideration, we are not going to take any action, or we are going to take any action. Any decision that I make as the library director on that request, the patron can appeal that to you as the library board. The time we would bring it to the board as soon as possible after we receive the request. I think our policy says it has to be at least 3 days before the next scheduled library board meeting, but we would bring that request back to the library board as quickly as we could, and then we would probably have a discussion like this. We would let you review the challenge request. We would try to, I would provide a staff report that said, here's why we made the decision we did on this appeal, and then the library board would have the opportunity to weigh in, and if the library board felt that the director had not made the correct decision, that would be within the library board's purview to overturn the decision made by the library director.
Thank you.
So Greg, how many have we had over the last year, for example, or the last month, or I don't know how many. I have no idea how many we get of these challenges.
So since I've been here, which is now just a little over 2 years, we have not received one in 2 years. I will defer to Barrett and Denise for kind of historical. My gut feeling is one a year, maybe, if that.
I mean, I've been on the library board for 4 years, and there's never been one brought to the library board that I can recall. And I think I probably would remember something like this.
Yeah, sorry. I can speak to that a little bit if that would be helpful.
That would be helpful. Yes.
So typically what happens more often than a formal challenge is that parents usually come to a library staff member, whether it's whoever's sitting at the circulation desk or it often will get referred to me. And usually what happens is it's more of an informal conversation. And a parent will say, well, patron, I encounter it in the parent context, but it can be any patron. But often the patron will come up and they'll say, hey, I came across this item and, I really didn't feel that it was appropriate for the age, this age group. I just wanted to let you know about it, or they'll say something, I was upset about it. And usually what happens is there's a conversation. So there's been a couple of times where a parent has come across content where they'll be like, well, I really didn't, I didn't realize this was going to be in this book. I didn't, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't prepared to have this conversation with my child, and we kind of have a conversation about how the library is laid out and, what resources the librarians can provide to help make those decisions and help the parents, support the parents so that they feel prepared to be able to, evaluate what's in the library. Because again, what's right for one kid is not going to be right for another kid. And we know that we have like such a wide variety of families and belief systems and sort of subcultures within our community. So there's a lot of variation. And so people get upset about different things for different reasons. So often really what it is the person really just wants to be heard and they want to have resources so that they're prepared to handle these situations in the future. There was one occasion where a parent, pulled something and said, I don't think this is appropriate. And I looked it up and it turned out it had been an error. It was a book we'd ordered for our teen collection that had gotten mislabeled and put in the children's collection. And so that was a really easy fix. It didn't have to elevate itself to a challenge. And that is generally, at my previous library, our practice was that, if somebody wanted to do a challenge, we always tried to, have to give them a chance to sit down for children's materials with the children's librarian and just talk about their concern. Because most of the time it turned out that once they talked their concern through with the librarian, parents left feeling pretty satisfied that they understood, how the library worked, and they felt that they had the tools that they needed and the support that they needed from us as their librarians to be able to use the collection with confidence. And we're always happy to talk to parents, figure out what they're looking for, help them, develop the tools and the frameworks they need. We do have Common Sense Media, which is a really useful tool for parents to kind of evaluate levels of concerning content in books for kids. They might be really concerned about swearing or about substance abuse. And it'll give a little metric for that. They recently went to a pay system so that people have to pay to see those reviews. We do have a staff-only subscription. It's not available for the public just to use, but any parent who wants to check a Common Sense review of a book can always come and ask us, and we're happy to check that information for them. And I will say also, I've been here 6 years, and the concerns parents have had, it really has been a variety of concerns. It's been across the political spectrum. I want to be clear. I feel right now this is really politically charged, and I want to be clear that I take this approach with, this is a very neutral approach, and I've had people, the types of concerns people have been very, very wide and very, very broad, and we treat all of those concerns the same, that we have the same standards for every book and for every family who comes through, that we're being really consistent about this, and that we want there to be books for everyone in our community. And then the other tool I often recommend is if parents feel like there's really a lack of certain materials in the collection, but we show them, our suggestion forms, and I'm, very open to suggestions. And if parents want there to be more books in a specific area or on a specific topic, we are happy to do that. Our teen classics collection upstairs in the teen section was actually based on a parent response of really wanting their children to be reading the classics and really becoming engaged deeply with literature. And so we sat down and we had a really good conversation. And out of that, we built a section in our teen area that's just, it's classics, it's books that have won the Alex Award of Best Adult Books for Teens, because that's what those parents really felt their youth needed. And we've created a children's picture book classic section as well based on that. Because the parents in particular really wanted to focus on an emphasis on classics and felt that need wasn't being met. So when parents come to us or community members come to us, in addition to addressing their concerns about specific books, if they do feel that there's something that they want that we don't have enough of, I'm always happy to take suggestions and try to build that out so our collection matches the needs of the community.
Thank you, Barrett. Just one comment from me as the chair. Something that Greg said at the introduction is really important. We're not the parents. And we can't pretend to be the parents. We don't want to be the parents. We shouldn't be the parents. I mean, the parents are there to decide what's appropriate and not appropriate for their kids. And it just recalls to me when I was at PCC, I had a mom come in with her 13-year-old boy, and she had complained because the vagina monologues were going on at the college, and it was very offensive to him and to her. And I understood the perspective of a 13-year-old boy confronting this. But this was a community college. This is a public place where views, all views or many views are exposed to be looked at, and one could choose to absent themselves from that. And that's basically the solution that I suggested. I said, I'm sorry if he has to walk by the booth, but that's as much as we can do. And really it's up to you to deal with these issues with him. And yes, he's young, and he's young at a community college, and this is one of the challenges. And so we face that. And I'm just delighted to hear that our professional staff are engaging our patrons with this level of respect and interest, and hope to develop the collection. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Barrett.
And then one more thing that I just want to emphasize that I know a lot of parents are really concerned right now about wanting to have a say in what their children read, and wanting to feel like they have a sense of agency over that. And I just did a presentation for the teachers at the school district last week where this topic came up, and I basically had to give them like this whole concept in about 2 minutes, and I had to pick one way to get at it. And the phrase that I chose to share that with them was, each parent has the right and therefore the responsibility to decide what is appropriate for their child. Like, as Greg said, and as David, you just reinforced, like, it is not the library's job to make that decision. Parents have those rights. We are not trying to infringe on those rights. But it's the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. They have those rights, and therefore they are responsible for. They're responsible for making the best decision for their child themselves. But then also that their authority to make that decision stops with their child or with their children. They don't have the right to make that decision for other people's children, because children are different. Families are different. I think actually a great example is that we got some pretty frequent, we were doing book suggestions online during the, kids could request book recommendations online during the pandemic. And we had a kid who was in upper elementary school who was requesting a lot of romance stories. And I remember we have several people on staff who also have kids about that age. And they were just like, what the heck? My kid doesn't want to know romance exists. And they're this exact same kid's age. Like, what is going on here? Like, different kids develop at different rates, and they have different interests. Like, that's normal. So there's a lot of variety in what is appropriate for, you can have two kids who are the same age, same grade, otherwise very similar, but what's going to be appropriate for those kids is very different based on each individual child and based on their family's culture of what's important to them. And so, individual parents get to, they know their kid, they know their family, they know what values they want to be, instilling in their children, and we want to help them meet those goals. But that happens in the context of that child and that family, and that parent's authority doesn't go beyond their family. We respect the right of each individual family without trying to make blanket judgments about what is going to be right for everything. The one thing that we really do feel is right for everyone is that we give, we are structured in a way to support parents to make those choices without limiting the choices for anyone else.
Great. Thank you, Barrett.
I mean, I think that's great. I think that's a great message. I mean, I really appreciate what you were saying about that. And I guess I won't say my concern, I just don't know how the folks that you have the opportunity to interact with and what you're doing is wonderful. But not all parents would be, they may not even be comfortable bringing it up to you, but they're sharing it with their friends that they have these concerns. And I'm only bringing this up because I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to, maybe in a trail news or, well, that doesn't go to everybody in our service area, but is there a way to communicate with the community that that this is, that there is a process if you have concerns about what you can do. I don't know if that's if that's feasible or not, or if it's something that we want to be proactive about, or do we want to wait until something happens?
I have a comment, if I may.
Quickly, yes, please.
I've found that anytime I have a thought or a feeling, I'm not alone. There are millions of other people that have the same thoughts and feelings. And so my thought about when I go to the library, for instance, it may be after hours. And so Barrett wouldn't be available, or I may go on the weekends. A lot of times I go at odd times. So I'm thinking that there may be a lot more concerns by patrons than what have been seen by Barrett, for instance. I would suggest perhaps that anytime a library staff is approached by a patron with a concern about the content, that they be given a sheet of what to do, who to talk to. Because I think that an awful lot of concerns are not being discovered. You know, if someone talks to a librarian, and I talked to a librarian, I won't say who, and she said that it was probably just best that it was an opportunity that that the parent would have at that time to discuss with their child. It's a learning moment or something. And so there, you know, if you have a concern like that, I think that there should be a more formal way of handling it, because
I think
many of these concerns may not be actually reaching the library.
I think that's the issue. The issue is, it seems like we have a process, and there are forms, and there is a process of appeal, but that's not widely understood. And so we have to do a better job at communicating that, and at least making it available. And I think we'll take that under advisement and certainly move forward with that understanding, because I agree. If there are concerns, then we ought to know about them and deal with them and be transparent about that. So,
I support Peggy's comments about making the process more transparent. As some of you know, I manage the library at Clackamas Community College, and we actually had those forms at several of the desks 24/7, I guess you might say, so that, you know, patrons could access those forms at any time. And it may be too that since the pandemic, it's been a little hard to do staff development at any library, and perhaps a little training session for all library staff, whether they're volunteers or paid staff, on the procedures for collecting patron concerns might be in order. It's been hard on the library to have that kind of thing with, you know, library open and closed and staff in and out. But I think it's a good time for us to address that now, because we're getting back in full swing and staff are back, you know, more permanently, and more people are coming in. I think it's a good opportunity to address some of Peggy's concerns.
Thank you.
okay, I want to be conscious of time, folks. It's now 6:25.
May I make, I did also want to assure Peggy, we do have multiple, and to let the board know, we do have multiple venues for folks to provide feedback. So, you know, it's not just we have email, we have web forms, we have suggestion boxes. I completely hear that, you know, there's always more that we can do to accept feedback and to work with our community. But I do want to assure everybody that we do try to listen, and I do, you know, when patrons do have concerns, I hear about them. So we can always do a better job, but I don't want anybody to think that we're not open to any feedback and that we don't actively try to solicit feedback from our community.
Great, thank
I
you.
think Trail News is an excellent opportunity, venue to alert people, educate them.
Okay.
Right. Now, Greg, was there going to be any action on this policy at this point?
There was no action at this point. It was just, again, this This was in the news. At some point later in the year, we will do a more formal
Right.
review of the collection development policy, and I will be asking folks, to reapprove it.
Right.
We may have a few tweaks. There's a couple things we know we want to look at, but at this point, no, there was no action I was requesting.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to thank Penny Simpson for your input and for taking the time to speak with us. I encourage you to meet with staff and to discuss any specifics that are of concern, because I think that's a more appropriate venue for dealing with those kinds of issues. Again, I want to be conscious of everybody's time. We've got two other pretty meaty topics here. One is a review of the final, one is the suggestions of the strategic plan revisions, and which I'd like to go through, but I'd like to I'd rather not have to rush. And the other is just the bylaw changes that have to do with committee assignments. It's more administrative and nuts and bolts. And I wonder if we could jump to that one and see if we could get approval of the recommended changes of the bylaws, because we need to do that, and the city commission needs to deal with that. And then maybe table the strategic plan to the next meeting and make sure that we have a more robust discussion then. Is that okay with folks? Yeah, I see nods. That sounds good. Okay. So Greg, could you very quickly go through just the bylaws that we've discussed already before?
Yes. So the bylaws changes, they're the same as we discussed, I believe it was in August. The goal of those bylaws changes is to provide a little more structure for subcommittees or committees of the library board. In particular, we want to make our teen advisory group and our Because Accessibility Matters group, advisory group, formal subcommittees of the library board. And we've talked about the reasons for doing those in the past, to have better communication and to make sure that library staff, when we get advice from different groups, it's all kind of funneling up through the library board. We're the designated community representatives. So these bylaws changes would allow us to do that. I think they're more procedural than anything. It's just kind of defining how we put these groups together. We want to make sure that for every one of those committees, there is a designated library board liaison. And that we've also said that we want to make sure those groups are reporting to you as the library board on at least an annual basis. So
great. And have you run this by the city attorney?
We have run it by the city attorney. I have not gotten any negative feedback yet. If there's anything that changes, I would of course let you know, but I don't anticipate there would be any substantive changes.
Any questions from board members?
Are you asking for approval of those bylaws this evening, Greg?
Yes, I think I would like, I'd like to entertain a question.
I had a question.
Nick?
If we're setting up committees, is that up the committee establishment of the committee? Maybe I didn't read the whole thing. I tried to look for the highlights, but to establish a committee, I assume it would have to go through the board to be established. Is that correct?
Through the library board, yes. So
through the library board to be
established. Yes. So in the current bylaws, the library board chair already has, I mean, it's very short. It says one of the responsibilities of the board chair is to establish committees, I believe. And so we are just kind of expanding on that to kind of give more parameters around it. So yes, the process would be, formally, like for teen advisory group, we would come back at a future meeting once this was done, and I would request, we would like to establish a formal committee of the library board, the teen advisory group. We would ask that, a liaison gets appointed for that kind of group, which is one that's kind of made up of teens. The bylaws would say that we as the library staff would still handle kind of the recruitment. That liaison would be involved in that process. But the process that we currently are following would not change all that much. It's just formalizing that structure. And I don't believe, we've talked informally with our city administrator, and I don't believe our city commission would have any problems with us doing that. It's not the committee. I don't believe the committee appointments would have to go to the city commission or the mayor for approval. So
they shouldn't have to.
No, they shouldn't. So,
but I guess I guess my question was around when I read it, I didn't totally understand how they would get it, how a committee would get established. Like
I think we put it in there. It's the board chair with the approval of the library board would establish would establish that. So,
And then it talks about the charge for the committee. Is the
Yes.
charge, the objectives, the reason for the committee? Is that what charge means?
yeah, yes, that was the intent, was that, if we're going to put a committee together, we want to say, okay, we want to have a teen advisory group. And, it doesn't have to be a formal, when we create it at the board level, it doesn't have to be a long charter of it. It's basically, we would like to form a teen advisory group in order to allow teens of the community to provide feedback on library services and provide those to the board. So just to make sure that, we have a reason for these committees are being put together.
Yeah, yes, I was maybe in my mind that the way it was worded with calling it a charge.
Was there a different word that you would?
Well, I mean, you're really establishing the objectives and
purpose
and objectives for the committee.
Okay.
I mean, if that's what that section's saying. I mean,
Yes, that is honest. I think I got charged from some other samples that I had seen from other bylaws. That charge was kind of the language that I saw most frequently.
I think
But
purpose and objective would be better.
Purpose and objective. Okay.
So Nick, would you be comfortable with approving the bylaws tonight if that small language change was made to replace charge with purpose and objectives?
Yes, I would.
Could I entertain a motion then to accept the recommendation as amended to our bylaws?
I'll make that motion to accept the bylaws as amended this evening.
Right. And second, please.
I'll
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, please. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Concern? Great, thank you. So I would like to defer the strategic planning discussion to the next meeting. Are there any, there's some communication, and I want to be sure that we're not missing anything. And I don't want people to rush, but I want to be respectful of time.
So one question on the strategic plan. We did that work session and we talked about the changes that were recommended for it. Is that specifically what we're approving? That we want to approve the changes that were recommended at that time?
That's what we will have the discussion about. That's why I wanted to have more time to be sure that wording, people have time to make sure they see that wording. And yes, that's what we're saying as a starting point for approval.
Right. I mean, it's not the entire strategic plan. It's those sections that we addressed at the work session.
Yes, and but it also, as you can see from the options of that Greg laid out in terms of approval, it also is suggesting, well, one suggestion is that we charge, I'll use that word again, the staff the responsibility of the tactical plan that is based on the strategic plan that the board has come up with, that then the staff needs to come back to us in a reasoned amount of time with a detailed action plan of tactics as to how to fulfill the objectives that we've laid out. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I was assuming that basically we would just have a motion to approve what we discussed at the work session, but I have no problem going through it again.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that everybody has had a chance to read it and to do that. I don't think it'll take a lot of time next time.
I agree. I'm fine with whatever approach we want to
Are
take.
people fine going another 5 minutes or so to talk about communication? I want to be sure. So some of you have attended meetings and the board ought to know what's going on with the Friends, the foundation, and the task force if it has done anything. So Nick, you're here. Has anything happened?
Actually, we have a meeting scheduled at the February the 28th, and really the task force has been pretty much in hiatus, and right now we're just basically the discussion at that point will be there's a committee working on defining what the issues are at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. What about the Friends?
I'll report for Larry.
Right, of course.
We've had a couple meetings with the Friends since the last time we reported. They approved today. They're going to contribute financially just to the Everbright board, so that was great. Their store is doing pretty well. They had some COVID issues in January, just like we did. They had to close for a week, but their store is going pretty strong. And they are also working on a mural that will go on the outside, the exterior of the building. So the city recently approved some mural code, some changes so that murals can be, you can get a mural permit. So they're going to apply to have a mural put out there, and they're very excited about that. So I'm sure we'll get some more information out about that in the near future.
Great. Cynthia, Foundation?
Yes, I'm happy to report that the foundation approved to contribute $3,500 to the Everbright project, and we're pretty excited about that. And we're excited to hear that it's ready to roll. And so, and then just a little bit addressing Penny's comments earlier about foundation and managing funds, that we have a new treasurer, Dave Wimmer, and he has reorganized, streamlined, and clarified all of our financial reports. So we're in the best shape in terms of reporting that we've been in for a long time. And I'm really happy to see those clear and cogent reports. So we're happy to have worked that out over the last couple of meetings.
He's a great person for that job too.
Good. Any other comments now? Any other concerns? Okay, with that, at 6:38, I will adjourn the meeting. I thank you all, and thank you for the public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Talk to you
Have a
soon.
good
Thank you.
evening.
Stay
Bye.
well. Happy Valentine's, everybody.